Okay, I'm getting back into my reading of the standard works. What this series is I will be reading through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I will be reading in chronological order according to events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit. I am currently still reading in the book of Genesis. When I do read in the Bible, I will, when they are available, read portions from the Joseph Smith translation. And this is an inspired correction or translation of the Bible that made by Joseph Smith to restore those portions of the Bible that had been lost over the years. I am here reading in chapter 41. This is a bit of a longer chapter, so I may have to divide it into two different videos, but we will see how it goes. Genesis chapter 1. Pharaoh dreams of the kine and the ears. Joseph interprets the dreams as 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. He proposes a grain storage program. Pharaoh makes him ruler of all Egypt. Joseph marries Asenath. He gathers grain as the sand upon the seashore. Asenath bears Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph sells grain to Egyptians and others during the famine. Here we go. Verse 1. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and fat-fleshed, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the bank of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. And again, remember, the word kine means cow. That's what this is talking about. The term cattle refers just to herd animals in general. This is talking about cows specifically. Continuing on, verse 5. And he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Okay, so we had the 2 dreams. This is, again, a very famous story. 2 dreams, 7 good cows, 7 skinny, starving cows. They eat the fat cows. And then he wakes up, and the same thing with the ears. The blasted with the east wind. This would be just a metaphor or idiom, because in the area of the Middle East, the east wind is blowing off of the Arabian Peninsula or the Arabian Desert, and it was a very hot wind and could damage crops. That's why it means blasted by the east wind. This would be like a dust storm of types coming off the desert. But note that nobody could interpret these dreams. So I do know, Pharaoh had a dream. He woke up from the dream, scared him. He went back to sleep. He had a second dream. It woke him up again, and it scared him. And it doesn't say that he called his magicians immediately. It says in the morning. In other words, we don't know if he fell back asleep or not, or if he just sat in his bed wondering what was going on. But he contemplated it for a while, probably, before calling in the magicians for an interpretation. And they couldn't interpret it. So, verse 9. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. Excuse me. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Okay, so when the butler was first restored, It says he forgot about Joseph. He didn't tell Pharaoh, but now he's telling Pharaoh. This is, remember, 2 years later. So Joseph has been in prison for a number of years now. At least 2. He was probably in prison for close to at least a year before the incident with the baker and butler's dreams. So, sorry, got a tickle in my throat. Anyways, verse 14. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, okay, now remember that again, Joseph is giving the credit to God. He's not claiming any skills for himself. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them, up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. So there's just a little bit extra detail in this recounting of the dream. And that is that when we first read it, we read about the dream, the 7 ate the 7. That's all it said. Now Pharaoh's informing us that in eating the 7 bad eat the 7 good, but there is no noticeable difference, like you would expect after a full meal. But so that is a little detail that is added into this second account. Verse 25. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath shewed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he sheweth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all of the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land for reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God shall shortly bring it to pass. Okay, so we're all familiar with the 7 years of good, 7 years of plenty. But the reason he was given 2 different dreams was to emphasize just how bad this famine was going to be. And if you'll recall, in the days of Abraham, there was a famine. That's why he went to Egypt. And later he went to stay with Abimelech because of a famine. Later on, after Abraham died, there was another famine in the days of Isaac. And he went and stayed with Abimelech because of that famine. So now this is the 3rd famine to come, and this is in the days of Jacob. So we have a series of famines that have been hitting this area. So now let us continue again. Verse 33. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. So 1/5, kind of a 20% tax on all the crops for the 7 years in order to prepare for the 7 years of famine. Verse 37, and the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God hath shewed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Okay, just a couple of notes here. I think we will finish this in one video, but just a couple of notes, of course. Joseph is made second only to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, he says, because I'm sitting on the throne, I'm going to be higher than you. But I'm the only one. Nobody else is higher than Joseph. And putting his ring on Joseph's hand, that would be his signet ring, the ring that he uses to sign all official papers. So he is basically giving Joseph the authority to act in Pharaoh's name, without question. He doesn't need Joseph to bring him the papers so that he can sign it. He's saying, Joseph, you can sign it. I trust you. Again, an extreme trust in Joseph. But I want to say we are given no definition, no translation for the name Zaphnath-Paneah or of his wife Asenath. But it says here that she is the priest of Potiphera. There is some theories, some speculation, that she was the daughter of Potiphar, and that Potiphar was his official name as the steward, and Potiphera was kind of the title he had as the priest of On, that he was both the steward of the house and the priest of On. I don't know if that's true. That is just speculation that I have heard. So let us continue. Let us finish this off real quick. Verse 46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all lands. So just quickly, this is everywhere. This isn't just a famine in Egypt. It's everywhere. And the only reason Egypt is surviving, the only reason anybody is really surviving, is because of Joseph. Now, just quick, Manasseh and Ephraim were not actually given translations for their names, it would appear, at least not in the footnotes. So I'm not going to mention that. The last thing I do want to mention is going back to the book of Jasher really quick. When it talks about Joseph selling the corn to the Egyptians, according to the book of Jasher, he sold first for money. When the Egyptians ran out of money, he traded them corn for their animals. When they ran out of animals, he traded them corn for their land. And when they ran out of land, he said, you will work for your corn. And in this way, Joseph actually turned Egypt into a standard monarchy. Before this time, the people owned their own land. They owned the king was still the king. He still had the greatest authority, but he didn't have personal control over the land, over the animals. But because of Joseph, he gained it through selling the corn to the people. Now, again, this is just from the book of Jasher, so whether or not it is true, I don't know. But it is an interesting little note to put into the story. And I'm going to leave that here because the video is getting kind of long.